There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello, BookTube. I'm Sean Breathes Books. Welcome back to my channel and a really special conversation with a really special writer in my world, and that is the American writer who lives in the UK, Ellen Hawley, the author of the 2022 novel Other People Manage that just swept me off my feet. And after that, she wrote another good novel called A Decent World, 2023. And she's been my guest a handful of times, but it's been too long since she has. So here we are to catch up and talk about writing and reading. Ellen, welcome back.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
That's great. So you're looking younger every time
I am younger every time. You should have me on more often. I'll be even younger.
So I'll start with a very general question. What have you been up to, Ellen?
Writing-wise, I finished another novel, which I assumed my publisher would take because I thought I had something. Sometimes it's very hard to judge your own work, but sometimes you get a feeling about a novel and you think, yeah, this has some life in it. I've got something here. And I felt that way about this one. And they looked at it and turned it down. Partly for them, it was too political. Also, they published the two books that you mentioned, and they've been wonderful. They really have been fabulous. The second one didn't sell very well. It wasn't reviewed very wide. It was was reviewed once in a paper that hated it. A very short review. And it's very hard to sell books when they're invisible. So it didn't sell well. That has to factor into them turning this novel down because they've got to make money to stay alive. That's showbiz. What I've been doing is looking for an agent for it. I've been working for the past two books, I've been without an agent. The book before that, I had an agent in the US. She is semi-retired, and so I sold two without an agent. It's a lot easier if you have an agent because there are just some doors they can open that a writer can't. So right now I'm out in the cold and I'm looking for an agent.
I hope that I have some literary agents watching my channel. I'm not aware that I do, but they should take note. I'm always reminded when I hear about a writer's novel being turned down by a publisher that they've published with in the past. My mind always goes back to Barbara Pym. Do you know about Barbara Pym and the long period where she was in the literary wilderness?
I don't.
I think it was her fifth or sixth novel she brought to Jonathan Cape, and they had published all the first ones. And then in about I can't remember the year, sometime in the 60s, they said, your style it's a little old fashioned. It's not really speaking to the contemporary moment. We're going to let you go. And she just couldn't get published for, I've forgotten, I think 16 years. And then suddenly she was rediscovered very near the end of her life, and everything was brought back into print, and her books that she'd been working on during that long period were rushed into print, and a couple more came out after her untimely death at the age of, I don't know, 70 something, 68 or something, and she came back. But think of that. Yeah. So how do you keep yourself going as a writer and a human being when this kind of stuff happens, Ellen?
You just keep going. You just slog on. One thing I have learned is that there is no single opinion about any piece of writing.
Absolutely.
And nobody out there has the truth about anyone else's work, or their own work. So that helps.
Yes.
And styles do change. The market changes. You can't write for today's market because by the time you're finished, that'll be
Yes.
yesterday's market. You just have to write what you write, or at least I have to write what I write. There are people who have a little more control over that. I don't.
And tailor their writing to what they know is going to sell rather than what is viscerally meaningful to them as the writer.
And I have no argument with that. If that works, fine. I can't do it. I never made a living as a writer, which in a way is lucky because it means when I don't sell a book, that wasn't my bread and butter anyway.
Kind of goofily, I'm going to say maybe you just haven't found the right house cover photo for the new novel. Once you find that, your novels have the most wonderful covers with, I'll put A Decent World up. It's still in my in a box. I'm unpacking my library at the moment, but both of them have lovely house pictures. So, do you have one in mind for the new one, or I guess really tell us more about the new novel that's finished?
Let me tell you about house covers first. But when I still thought that Swift would accept it, when I was assuming that, I did think we can't do another house this time. We just can't do that. But anyway, this is basically the story of a woman who in the 1970s was prepared to bomb a police station to avenge a friend's rape. She didn't, as it turned out. So various things intervened. That's one timeline in the book. In the book's present tense, which is, I don't know, the day after tomorrow, let's say, there is a racist militia which is attacking Black neighborhoods. And this woman has a daughter who's mixed heritage, actually her niece, who she adopted her sister's child when her sister and her husband were killed in a car crash. So she's raised this woman. They live in a Black neighborhood. The neighborhood is preparing to defend itself. And she is wrestling with the questions of political violence. What is it? What are the dangers? What is the inevitability? What on earth is she going to do? She's not a young woman anymore. Is she even able? Is she able to do any useful violence, actually? So that's what it's about.
It sounds incredibly of the moment. What's
Yeah.
happening around the world, especially in America, I'm sure it would really speak to a lot of people. And how do I phrase this question? Are you fascinated by violence? I'm thinking about there's a violent moment in Other People Manage, and you and I had a really great conversation about it. And I don't remember violence in A Decent World, but violence is such a part of everyday life that my question is silly, but I'll lob it at you anyway.
It's an interesting question. I'm not sure how to answer it. Am I fascinated by it? No, but it certainly is a part of our world. Fascinated by it in a political sense, because the question that I keep coming back to is what is going to change this mess we're in? Can it be changed peacefully? If it's changed violently, what is the fallout from that?
That's right.
Because you do pay a price for it. It may be inevitable. I don't know, but the price is high. Personally, I'm not much over 5 foot tall. I'm not much use in a fight. I'm 78. You know, I haven't been in a lot of fights in my life, but I don't know who is we. I've lived in a world where it's always just out of sight. It's always on the fringes. I grew up in New York City, and there was always that fear of violence. I grew up in New York City, and I didn't want to live in a safe world. I wanted to get out. I wanted to do things. I wanted to be part of them. And the fear of violence was always there.
And I think that social activists, that may be too narrow of a term, but wrestle with how to achieve their goals, how to achieve a decent world, a fairer world, and it does resorting to violence fight fire with fire.
And even if you make a commitment not to, as the moment you mobilize a large number of people, a certain number of them are going to be drawn to violence. And because oh God, it's everywhere. It's in the culture, it's in the air we breathe, it's in the movies, it's on the television, it's quick, it's easy, it's appealing, and they may not be very good at it, but in the 70s, in the 60s and 70s, that was very much a part of the one strand of the movement. It wasn't the whole movement, but there were a certain number of people who turned to bombings, turned to all sorts of violent approaches to social change. It didn't work very well, but they did.
In a way, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
And bookworm that I am, my mind is already moving to what works of literature out there might you have had in your mind as you were writing this that might have tackled that theme?
Oddly enough, I don't really have other people's fiction in my mind when I'm writing. It just doesn't happen for me. But since you asked me, I read Kamila Shamsie's Home Fires, which is a fabulous book. Again, it gets into a lot of questions about political violence, and the ending is, I don't want to talk too much about it, but it is completely unexpected and very powerful and feels completely right. Have you read it?
I am trying to remember if that's the one I've read, but what's the basic premise of it?
It's about a woman who, an academic. I've read it a while back, so I'm going to stumble here. But she's got a position in the US, has trouble with immigration. This was written before the real trouble with immigration started. But she has a brother back in the UK who goes to, if I remember right, it's Pakistan, and which is the country their family is from. And she too is wrestling with the questions of who is she, where does she belong, how do you change a world? And she gets involved with some very respectable political people who are quite uncomfortable with her. It's a very interesting book. It's well worth your time.
I did read it, but it was so long ago, my memory is not so clear. But it's certainly lots of stuff about multiculturalism, terrorism, racism,
Yeah.
and love. And love. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably one I should reread. And I think you have an excerpt to read from your unpublished novel. Do you
I
want
would love to.
to set it up however you need to, or maybe you don't
Well,
need to set it up at all?
I don't really need to because this is the opening pages. At the moment, the book is called Self-Defense, although titles are smoke, and it's rare to get a book into print with the title you actually gave it. But I was half a table away when the shooting started, and with an instinct left from when Kiara first came to me, shell-shocked and silent, I turned not toward the danger, but toward where she stood, frozen, head turned toward the sound. Still life with screams. In one hand, she was crumpling a Pan-African flag she'd picked up from the table, a miniature thing meant for a bookshelf or a Kwanzaa tabletop. And I pulled her other arm, but she was rooted, drawing fury from the ground the way a tree draws water, photosynthesizing some understanding that was out of my reach, or for all I could tell, paralytic with fear. I yelled into the wordless collective scream that surrounded us. A man lumbered past, a big guy fighting gravity and bad knees to get himself to safety. Maybe he was the first, maybe he was just the one I took in, but more people followed until they broke Kiara loose and we ran with them. She was shepherding me now, yelling tree as she steered me left to avoid a tree I had no trouble seeing, steadying me when I stumbled on some damn thing at foot level that she avoided so automatically she hadn't thought to warn me about it. We ran with the crowd, betting our lives that they knew where we'd be safe, or at least that being in a crowd would give us some protection. Like schooling fish, the school survives. The individuals get no guarantee. The park ended just ahead of us, and my entire body believed that if we stepped off the curb, we'd be okay. It almost made sense. The shooting was happening in the park, so what we had to do was get outside of the park. I saw the curb in my peripheral vision, a few steps ahead. Beyond it, a car slammed to a halt, and Jax was yelling our names. Get in, he yelled. Get in. Jax, my mind asked almost coherently, at Juneteenth? Not because he was white. I'm white, for fuck's sake, but because he was white, which is an entirely different thing. I wouldn't have expected him to know what Juneteenth was, never mind show up. Still, he was there and his car was there. Jax, my nephew. Jax, the family afterthought. A band of the planet's most improbable angels coming after us. Or a solo of angels, alone, wingless, wearing a camouflage cap. I stumbled at the curb. I'd seen it, and then it moved to the center of my vision where things disappear, and I landed hard against the car door. Key dove for the back seat, and I opened the door that had kept me upright and more or less fell into the front seat. The car lurched forward while I was still slamming it, and it had gone, I don't know, no more than a few yards when Jack stomped the brakes, honked, yelled out the window at a cluster of people, hesitating, terrified, to get out of his way, get out of the fucking way. The waters parted, the waters yelled back at us from both sides of the car. A hand slammed on the hood, and we lurched forward with Jack yelling, yeah, and fuck you too. Another round of shots made me understand that at some point they'd stopped, that for a while there we'd been safe, and now we weren't. Or if we were, other people weren't. A new wave of screaming broke over us. In the park, a woman pulled a table over, spilling a rainbow of cake across the brown grass, and she crouched behind it, locking her body around a little girl's. But Jax had the car moving. I turned in my seat to keep them in sight, as if the act of seeing them gave them some sort of protection. They slid into the black hole at the center of my vision, reappeared, then disappeared behind us. Alive when last seen. No gunshots. More gunshots. Get down, Jax ordered. I slid as much of myself off the seat as I could, but he kept saying it. Get down, get the fuck down. I'm as down as I get. My hand fumbled for a lever to slide the seat back and returned with gritty fingers, a worn bit of potato chip. Will you get the fuck down? We're down. As if this was his fault. As if it was ours. As if I knew whether Key was down or not. The seatbelt chime dinged. The seatbelt chime had been dinging the whole time, but I'd only managed to hear it now. My mind was trailing behind me, picking up the moment's trash the way my hand picked up grit from the floor. The shots had stopped again. I squirmed my way onto the seat, heard Jack set the door locks, saw a pickup accelerate into a crowd and a body go flying, and as if she could stop its motion, Kiara bellowed no, the sound tearing out of her, raw and painful. Jack pulled the car forward, pushing it through a fleeing crowd that was ahead of us, and people moved aside grudgingly. Kiara and I turned as a unit toward where the pickup had come to a halt, deep in the screaming press of bodies. Bear witness, my mind instructed, as if I wasn't already doing that. My mind and I had become separate creatures, and I noticed how collected it was and how collected I wasn't. For the first time since I heard about bearing witness, somewhere in my late teens or early 20s, it occurred to me that it's what we do when we've lost. We invoke the future, leave them a note about what happened, register an objection. People were rocking the pickup now, trying to flip it over, and as if he was in a separate video, a man knelt on the sidewalk, head bent toward the pavement, an emoji for grief. I yanked at my door handle. Jax, open this door. He pulled the car forward. Now. Stay in the fucking car. I said open this door, as if he was 8, as if he'd listened to me when he was. The crowd thinned. People ran alongside us, then fell behind, and we were headed west, picking up speed. Outside the window, the world took on its old patterns. Traffic, relentless sunshine, sidewalks empty except for 2 black girls making chalk drawings on the sidewalk. Another emoji, this one for, oh hell, something. Safety, creativity, beauty of the human spirit, the gift of not knowing what the world holds in store. I clicked my seatbelt into place. It seemed like a strange thing to do and also a necessary one. The chime kept dinging. Whoever it was tattletaling on, it wasn't me. I'm going to yank that sumbitch, Jack said. It was almost conversational, just a little singed at the edges. Something for us to bond over. Should have done it when I bought the sucker. He'd stopped for a long red at O'Connell Street before I thought to say thanks, and we were headed for the freeway before I told him he missed our turn. We'll go to my place at Savor. Jax, don't be an asshole, Kiara said. The first real sentence she'd spoken since the shooting started, and some fragile creature inside me felt the sun on its wings and rose, riding the air's pure currents. We hadn't been thrown back to that silent time after her parents died. You don't understand, he said. I'll stop there.
Ay, ay, ay. What a powerful opening for a novel. Holy smokes. And so the I is the older protagonist.
Yeah.
And then her nephew Jax. And then Kiara is the niece that she has raised. Or
Yeah.
some of the family dynamics evoked the vibes of A Decent World, but the scene is very different.
Yeah, a family that's gone in a lot of different directions.
A lot of different directions. There's nothing that I can think of comparable to that action scene in any of the other 2 novels I've read by you. Was it a challenge to write that? It certainly paid off, however challenging it was.
That particular scene, no. I had a lot more trouble with a later scene, which is the scene where they're planning a bombing, because I haven't done that.
I wasn't going to ask if you had, but now you're on the record as saying you haven't.
Anyway, I did some reading about some of the groups that turned in the direction of bombing, the Weather Underground and some of the other groups that started bombing things in the 70s, and picked out just enough to be able to, I think, scraped by with a marginally credible bombing. And I didn't need to go into the details. My partner some time ago wrote a very good mystery that involves a woman who is the daughter of a guy who organized a right-wing militia back in the would have been 60s and 70s. And she grew up with guns, grew up with every kind of military equipment available. And we had the most incredible collection of books in our house because Ida, my partner, was researching how to blow things up, how do guns work, what kind of gun would I use to rob a bank. We once went into a gun shop because she wanted to look at some guns. And she walked in and said, what kind of gun would you recommend if you were going to rob a bank? And the man's face just froze. It was, I jumped in and said, she's writing a novel.
I think you've mentioned that novel maybe the last time we chatted. So tell us the title, and I'll make sure to put the GIF on the screen here.
It's Owl of the Desert
By Ida
Swearingen.
That's right, Swearingen. Yeah, because we have a famous booktuber with the same last name, Swearingen.
It's not a common name.
Not a common name. And so that's a good question to ask you. How involved is your better half, your other half in your writing process? Is she I'm assuming she's your first reader.
Actually, she's not. I did ask her to read this one because the narrator, as an older woman, has macular degeneration, which Ida has. And so I asked her to read it as a bullshit detector and tell me if I'd gotten it wrong. But I got it past her. And my experience as the person so far with good eyesight is that I never know her eyesight. Actually, she had a cataract removed and her eyesight's much better now. So I don't need to do this. But when it was at its worst, I never knew what to warn her about. And I was always warning her about things she did see and not thinking to warn her about the things she didn't. You can't be inside someone else's eyes and know what they're not seeing.
Has she continued to write mystery novels or any kind of books?
To my sorrow, she hasn't. Her novels and her imagination are set down on the Texas border. And she had a second one that followed Owl of the Desert. She never managed to get it published, and she stopped. And to really continue, she would need to spend time down on the border. That's just her process. She needs to be there and soak it in. And we're a long way from the Texas border right now.
Maybe in the fullness of time, she will transfer. Her new setting will be where you live in the UK, and then the
I wish she would pick it back up because she's good.
Is there anything else you want to tell us about this novel before we move on to hear what you've been reading?
Can't really think of much else to say except that I hope to find a home for it. I don't know, given the politics in the US right now, whether a US publisher would want to take it on. Everybody's running scared. And
I do have one book that I want to ask you if you've read, and if not, to recommend to you. The Deluge by Stephen Markley. And it is about climate change. It's a climate change themed novel, and it is an American epic. It comes in at almost 900 pages, and I didn't want it to end. The story starts in 2013, and then it goes to about 2040. And it follows a group of characters. Some of them are politicians, some of them are scientists, and a great number of them are climate change activists. And there is a peaceful kind of activism strand, and there is a more, we have to bomb these oil refineries, for example, in order to affect change. And it's threaded through with the most seven-dimensional characterization of these people that you just get so deeply invested. And yet there's so much about the politics of it that is very illuminating. It is, I would say, a masterpiece. So I think you would enjoy it.
I will look for that.
If enjoy is the right word. You may not love it as much as I loved it. You will not regret reading it. I think you'll find the experience quite interesting. And I'd love to hear your thoughts if you do.
Okay.
But that's not why we're here, for me to recommend books to you. I want you to recommend books to me.
Okay, well, I was slow to pick up on this, but I have read 2 Caravans.
Oh, I didn't know she had a new one out.
Marina Lewycka, if I'm pronouncing her name right, which is funny and serious and unpredictable and fabulous.
I'm aware of her earlier novel. It's got the word tractors in the title.
Short history of tractors in Ukraine, is that it?
And I have that book. I haven't read it yet.
I haven't either, and I need to get a hold of it because I really enjoyed this one.
So this one is more recent?
I think, yes, I think this is her second one.
Okay.
It's about immigrant labor in the strawberry fields in the
East of England.
It really is utterly unpredictable, and I love the mix of humor and seriousness.
Sounds very interesting.
The other one that I wanted to recommend is Ocean Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. Have you read that?
I have, and it wasn't for me, but it's a
It
book that
wasn't.
people love. He's a very well-regarded writer, and I will say I love his poetry, but his novel just didn't work for me, and we don't have to talk about my feelings about it. Why did you like it, Ellen?
It's funny. Usually when somebody says that a novel is poetic, I think, oh yeah, let me out of here, because I want a novel to be a novel. This one is poetic, and I think it works as a novel too. I was really drawn into the characters. They're very powerful, very deeply felt, and to me, very real. You don't get a lot of working class American writing. You don't get enough of it. And it creates a world.
And have you read his second one? It's just come out in the last maybe 3 or 4 months.
I haven't yet. I'm looking forward to it, though.
Yeah, it's called The Emperor of Gladness.
That's it. Yes.
Emperor
Yes.
of Gladness, and it seems to be getting quite good reviews.
I'm trying to not get any more books until I catch up with myself. It's completely out of hand, in part because I'm reading a lot of history. I do a blog, which initially I started because it seemed like a good way to publicize a novel. It probably isn't a good way to publicize a novel, but it's taken on a life of its own.
Tell us more about the blog.
The blog initially was about living in England as a foreigner, as an American, and lots of, gee, isn't this strange? Gradually, as that wore itself out, I started to write about English history, which I'm fascinated by. And so most of it is about English history. Some of it is about politics or culture, but most of it is about history and little odd corners. Again, the mix of humor and seriousness. And it's easy reading, but it is information.
And I think it should come out in book form.
I tried. I should probably try again. What I put together was too episodic, and I need to say, okay, we'll focus on, I don't know, porridge in the Middle Ages. I don't know, some coherent theme, and try it again. Unfortunately, I have absolutely no credentials as a historian, and that is not working in my favor, I'm sure.
I don't imagine that you're probably as interested in the monarchs as you are in the working class people throughout British history. But I recently read Queen James, which is the biography of King James.
Oh,
Queen James by, what's his name? I just finished it like a week or so ago and very much enjoyed it. Queen James, A New History About the Life and Loves of Britain's First King, James Stuart, by Gareth Russell. And it was fascinating and very gay.
I'm sure.
Yes, all kinds of juicy stuff in there.
I'm not interested in the monarchs for their own sake, but when there is an element of lunacy in it all, the whole Tudor issue, especially with Elizabeth, you need an heir. Your whole shtick is to be the Virgin Queen. This is a problem.
Yes, and there's so much about that in maybe stuff that you've read elsewhere, but I certainly learned a lot about all that in this book.
So I have a real love of absurdity. And so when there are some of the monarchs who are interesting, but treat history as a list of monarchs is, oh my God, can you do anything more boring?
I'm interested in the queens.
Queen James sounds great.
And I know that you probably don't care about the grandmother of the current king, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, but the same author wrote a lovely biography of her called Do Let's Have Another Drink. And it was wonderful too, but I'm sure you don't want to read it, but the title, I just had to get the title into this conversation.
Oh, I'd love to know if that was his original title or not. Talking about titles being smoke.
That's right. Some general questions about your reading habits. Are you a monogamous reader, one book at a time, or are you a book whore like me, multiple books on the go?
I usually have several books on the go, and some of them these days, if I put it down and I don't go back to it, it's dead. I've got a stack of them that I virtuously tell myself, yeah, I'm going to finish that. And I know I'm lying.
And so are you like a passive bailer in that way? Like you just don't get around to picking it up and then it goes out of the house or back on the shelf at some
That is,
point?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And are any of them by dead writers so that you won't be embarrassed to tell us which ones those were? Or
Actually, I don't have a list in my head that I could tell you actually.
okay.
So they fall off the edge of the earth.
Yeah. I used to call myself the queen of bailing because I bailed so much. And then I promoted myself to the empress of bailing, but I now I don't bail very much. I've only bailed on 2 books this year.
Wow.
There was 2 or 3 years in a row where it was like more than about 50 or 60 books that but that was at a time in my reading life where I was experimenting with what different kinds of books, different kinds of novels or whatever out there might I be interested in, and I wasn't interested in very many of them. Now I know my own taste a lot better and find that I
Yeah.
don't. Always physical books, or what about ebooks and audiobooks?
I have read a few ebooks. I don't enjoy them as much. I want the book in my hand. I read better when I have the book in my hand, especially if I'm reading history for the blog. I want to underline stuff and I want to go back and find it.
That's right.
But even with a novel, I have an e-reader that's linked to Ida's e-reader. Don't ask me how we ended up with two, and neither of them is mine. But anyway, so occasionally I'll read a book on it that she's already gotten, or that's easier to get that way.
Buying books or getting them from the library?
The library here, I live in a village. The nearest small town has a very small library. You can order stuff. I never could get them to let me know when it came in. And in frustration, I gave up. I haven't gotten anything from our local library for a long time. I love libraries. That I feel like a traitor saying all of that. But I love used bookstores. I love the randomness of used bookstores. So I pick up a lot of used books and end up with stuff that I hadn't expected to come home with. I get a few books online I don't like to because I like to be able to take a look at what I'm reading and see if I like the style. Because if I don't, I won't finish it. We have a used bookstore, not store in the English sense. We have a used books stall at the back of our village shop, which is a community owned thing. And I clear it out periodically because it gets more books in than out. Don't ask me how that happens, but it does. People use it as partly as a dumping ground. Some of the books are very good. Some of them, I think I got rid of one on 1940s model trains once. Some of it is a little on the obscure side. And occasionally I'll take something out of that I'm going to take to a secondhand store and I think, oh, I think I might read this and bring that home. And so my pile of books grows faster than makes any sense.
Well, I hear you on that one. Maybe last bookish question to ask you before we wrap up is what's a book, maybe you already have it on your shelf or your nightstand, or maybe you don't, that you're looking forward to reading?
Let me see what I have underneath the computer holding. Here's one I'm now going to go at a different level. I picked this up from the village bookstall, The Girl with a Louding Voice by Abi Daré.
Oh, I think I have that one. It's certainly on my mental list of books to read.
I had never heard of it, and it looked interesting, and I took it home.
It's a
So
Palestinian story, I believe.
I do not know yet because I haven't
Uh,
gotten to it.
I may have that wrong, but it's certainly not a white story.
No, Nigeria. Yep.
Nigeria. Okay.
So yeah,
Nigeria is becoming the center of the literary universe, I think. There's so much good writing coming out in
yeah.
Nigeria. Maybe my last flippant comment, and I probably should have put this back at the end of when you were talking about your manuscript, is that I think the house picture just needs to be a house on fire, Ellen, for the new one.
Inevitably, there are houses in this. There's the collective house she lives in the 70s. There's the house she lives in with her daughter in this neighborhood that's under attack. Enough with the real estate. think it's time to get a new motif here.
I don't know. It's a pretty compelling motif. I just interviewed, and I don't think I could put my hand on his novel. Yes, I can. And this is not a book recommendation per se, because I haven't read it yet, but there is a new queer novel that just came out a couple months ago, maybe a month ago, from the States by a Black gay writer, The Fantasies of Future Things by Doug Jones. And it is very much about real estate. It's set in Atlanta in the lead up to the Olympic Games.
Oh, yeah.
Two Black men, both involved in real estate and not out to each other as gay men at the beginning of the story, but that becomes an important part of the story. It just sounds fascinating. And Doug Jones is a realtor novelist. And so we had quite a conversation about that connection, how your focus on houses and selling houses gives you a window into various lives and access to the domestic.
We do. We make our lives inside them, and they become part of us. So
One more question, and if it's too private or too silly, we'll just edit it right out. But tell us about your house, Ellen.
our house is, what, 1970s built. It's part of what in Britain they call an estate, which in the US we'd call a subdivision. It was a farm field. And somebody bought it and started building very similar houses and went broke. And then a next builder came in and built another set and went broke. And the third builder came in and built another set. So this is the low rent section of a fairly expensive village. What's becoming, it didn't used to be, but it's becoming that. Although nothing is, speaking of real estate, there are a lot of houses up for sale and they ain't selling. It may not be as expensive a village next year as it was last year. But anyway, when we moved here, like any other clueless Americans, we had a vision of let's move into a 300-year-old farmhouse with a view of the sea and covered in roses. And then we looked at the prices and said, yeah, because old is very expensive here and new is less. I'm really grateful we ended up where we did. If you get a 300-year-old house, you get 300-year-old problems with it. It's endless maintenance and a lot of trouble, which we're not up to, frankly. Neither one of us, we know which end of a hammer you hold, but that's about the end of it. We're not much use in that. So it's tight and it is all on one floor. And the older we get, the more that makes sense to me, not to have steps. And we love it. We've got great neighbors. There's a real neighborhood feel on the estate, which is great.
Sounds wonderful. Well, Ellen, I am a huge fan of your writing, and your reading life is fascinating. You are an exquisite guest. I have enjoyed this conversation immensely, and let's do it again, at least, I would say, annually, maybe even oftener than that.
I'm all for it. I love talking with you. I never know where things are going to go, but they're always interesting. So.
Thank you so much.